I have played my fair share of MMOs and MMORPGs over the last 2 years of running the MMOByte YouTube channel. I've had some terrible experiences and I've had some very memorable ones. Interestingly, some of the most entertaining of experiences were not even in full-fledged MMOs at all, but rather in games like Warframe and Path of Exile. And while they can be viewed as an MMO or as an MMORPG because they both definitely have very noticeable elements or traits of the genre embedded inside the core of their gameplay, the fact remains that they are not, really. Path of Exile is a free-to-play multiplayer online action role-playing game, so it's an MMORPG, minus the initial M that would have made it an MMO. The game was developed and published both by Grinding Gear Games and went into open beta in 2013. The game has grown to such acclaim and popularity since its launch that it makes most MMO look like an offline game you play with a friend or two, averaging hundreds of thousands of concurrent players every single day. To put that into perspective, MapleStory 2 in less than 3 months has 10,000 to maybe 20,000 players concurrently playing on average, and that is the biggest MMORPG release of 2018. Now, to preface this, I do want to point out that I am not, nor do I claim to be, someone that has played the game extensively. This is not a review. This is, I guess it's more of an overview of the game that I experienced over the first 4, maybe 5 hours with my wife, Mrs. STIX. You know, there might be a mistake here or there, and it's almost a guarantee that there are things missing, such as endgame, because honestly, I never made it that far, although I'm hoping that this video does well enough to warrant continued playing of the game for follow-ups. Now, if you've played a Diablo game, then Path of Exile will likely feel familiar to you. The game borrows very heavily from the Diablo series, in particular Diablo 2. The entire world outside of encampment is completely instanced off, meaning that you won't really see players that aren't within your immediate party anywhere outside of those small camps. This doesn't mean the world feels empty though. Not only can players mingle amongst one another before going out into the field, it's also possible to form parties with other players you're engaging with and head out on missions together. This does include a modicum of danger, however, especially when your partner, in my case my ever-loving wife, is too busy off looking at shinies on the ground to come over and help me when I am in dire need of her assistance. Yep. She was too busy spamming left click on all the items and beckoning the undead to do her bidding than to come to the assistance of her husband, who admittedly is running around pantsless and shoeless, which I guess could have also attributed to my untimely demise moments earlier. Path of Exile has 6 unique classes: the Templar, the Shadow, the Marauder, the Ranger, the Duelist, and finally, the Witch. Each class has their own unique playstyle, from hiding in the shadows to commanding the undead to, well, just smacking people with large objects. The game also offers various modes referred to as leagues: Standard, Betrayal, and Hardcore Betrayal. At least they're the leagues that are available right now after the new Betrayal expansion hit the live server. Leagues essentially represent individual game worlds that your player exists and plays through. You play alongside other players in the same league as you, and you cannot really interact with anyone outside of that specific league. I wanted to go for Hardcore Betrayal because, permadeath sounded like fun to me, but opted for Standard Betrayal, and if the clip earlier was anything to go off of, yeah, that was a good choice. You begin your journey on a beach, having seemingly just washed ashore. You subsequently watch one of your shipmates get eaten right in front of you, and, well, in my case, you club the zombie cannibal to death, after which begins a lengthy tutorial that you can skip, thankfully. I believe that's actually a new feature, as when I initially tried Path of Exile 2 years ago, there was either no skip tutorial feature or no tutorial altogether. Path of Exile employs a very interesting gearing and inventory system both. Each piece of gear can have its quality upgraded and have unique gems placed within them, so long as the colors match the socket they're being placed into. This in turn provides new skills, passives, and other beneficial buffs to the player. The inventory uses a grid system though that is very, I guess limiting is the word I'm looking for, but it's not inherently bad. It's very reminiscent of old school RPGs that had limited bag space, which, admittedly I always had difficulty with because I have very bad inventory management. In the background, you can see an encampment. As I mentioned earlier in the video, these are instanced off areas where hordes of players group can interact, take and complete quests, buy, sell, and trade. The skill system in Path of Exile though, man, I will admit it's very daunting at first glance, but the amount of customization it provides is almost immeasurable. My Marauder, at least to begin with, could choose between going DPS or tank. I had to think carefully because each route opens up its own unique path with its own unique selection of boosts and bonuses. This allows for players to customize quite a personal character, though something I wished was just, more common in traditional MMOs. The vast majority of gameplay takes place in outdoor instanced areas. The first half hour, my wife and I spent navigating the beach, massacring deadly crustaceans, skeletal archers, and yes, on occasion even dying to them. Especially when you don't take enough notice of your HP. You also get gear in-game primarily through loot drops. You know, you kill monsters and equipable gear drops. You can equip quite a large selection of gear, especially during the early areas of the game, and this makes for some, it makes for some very, very difficult choices of what to keep in your inventory. Which leads me to my next point. From what I could tell, and please do correct me if I'm wrong here, there was actually a lack of any, I guess, like official traditional currency in game. And by that I mean the game lacks like gold or a form of coin, anything similar to that. You're capable of trading scrolls, crafting materials, and various other items, but a lack of a solid currency struck me as very strange. I mean, this might just be me, but I found that it would be significantly more difficult to discern the importance of an item without a solid currency like gold. But, I mean, you know, it seems to work for Path of Exile, so who am I to judge, right? After about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, my wife had enough of me flexing in front of her and gloating about how powerful I was. So, naturally, she challenged me to a 1v1 duel in the PvP arena. I'm gonna let the video here showcase exactly how well that worked for her. I mean, at the end of the day, I won at least 2 matches out of 6, so, you know, I felt slightly less emasculated than I would have had I lost every single one. Admittedly, though, the Witch is a very powerful class at this level. Path of Exile actually has various PvP modes: 1v1 duels, capture the flag, a free-for-all arena, the cutthroat race, and tournaments. These modes are there to cater to a variety of different likes and dislikes. The game, although seen mostly from an isometric point of view, is very beautifully detailed. I honestly did not expect to see such beautiful environments in a game like this, and was taken a little aback every time I got to a new zone that had a new aesthetic to it. Admittedly, the questing system wasn't bad. I'm sure it has the traditional kill X amount of monsters and fetch X amount of items subtypes in game, but from what I could tell outside of the main story, all other quest types were avoidable and optional. I mean, that doesn't really mean that kill X amount of monsters is a bad quest to undertake though, especially not when this is the kind of destruction you get to enact onto your enemies. The sheer destructive force of our two classes together is just terrifying. There were some very cool quests we opted to do though in the first several hours of leveling. Those took us from small little hidden caves to deep dungeons inhabited by cultists, cannibals, and undead. Then there were puzzles, one of the most enjoyable aspects of the gaming genre altogether for me. Granted, you know, they weren't anything too difficult, at least not at this level, but having to maneuver around traps and puzzles made for an entertaining change of pace. My wife found it slightly more difficult than I did, running headfirst into the traps a few times, but... okay, maybe I did as well. Okay, in retrospect, maybe I ran into 1 or 2 additional traps along the way. Don't judge me though, I was tired. I have a legitimate excuse here. I work very hard recording videos. Ultimately, I thoroughly enjoyed my first several hours in Path of Exile. I loved having the freedom to run where I pleased, unlocking different areas, ignoring regions altogether. It was a thrill that you don't often get out of MMOs these days. Everything about Path of Exile just screams quality. A quality that I have definitely not gotten enough of yet, a quality that I wish other games, especially MMOs, adopted. Alas, I don't really think they will. So, you know, if you want that sense of quality and you don't want to play games like Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft, then you should definitely try Path of Exile out. It is tiers and tiers above your normal MMO, and you likely will not regret it. If you want to see more gameplay and you want to see me continue my experience through Path of Exile, let me know and I would love to acquiesce if the demand is high enough. Anyway guys, that is it for me. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you all next time. Peace.
Not looking for heaven or gold, 'cause I got you, don't wanna show.